I want 112,000 today.
Don't want to die. Death is a constant reminder here.
The more people we kill, we advance.
You ain't supposed to be alive.
Stealing, shooting people, doing whatever I had to do.
We had to make a living.
I want him dead. I want his family dead.
I know how to grind. I started from the bottom.
Never rat on your friends.
Race to rackets.
It's rough on a black man.
Hold up, we're gonna blow this whole...
What's going on, people? Now tonight we're picking up where we left off. And if you didn't see part 1, stop this video, go watch part 1 and get caught up. So in 1960s, we left off with Jeff Ford being locked up, which he would end up getting off on bail a little after Eugene Hairston was arrested in '67 for murder. Now Larry Hoover is shot time after joining King David to run a Gangster Disciples. Now King David tried numerous times to work with the Black Stones for a peace treaty, but things just didn't work out. Now starting in the year 1970, the Disciples and the Egyptian Cobras had been going to war. Both gangs had some control of the notorious Cabrini Green housing projects. Now if you don't know anything about the Cabrini Green projects, believe it or not, they always had snipers up in the towers, and I'm covering that story later on this week, so turn y'all notifications on. But thanks to Richard Strong moving into those projects in '63, he developed quite a following in no time, and he recruited several men into the Devil's Disciples, so that's how they got their situation there. Now time after, King David will be shot on June 7th, 1970, and there's many rumors on how. First I heard that Eugene Hairston put a hit out on him, but during that time, the Black Stones and Disciples had a peace treaty going on, but he was allegedly shot coming out of a bar. And the other rumor was that someone dropped a rifle and it went off hitting Barksdale. Well, whatever happened, he was rushed to the hospital and he would make it back home. Now, during these times, the early 70s was wild. July 17th, 1970, 2 cops were killed by young snipers as they walked across the baseball field while patrolling Cabrini projects. It wasn't even safe for cops during this time. August 14, 1970, patrolman James Alfano was shot and killed while investigating a report of a gang fight that was about to take place. He was driving through an alley between 66th Place and 67th Street near Stony Island Avenue, but was blocked by an obstruction in the roadway. As his vehicle was stopped, a sniper opened fire on him, fatally wounding him. The Black Peace Stones will be responsible. So just in 2 months, 2 policemen were shot and killed by snipers. And that's just on the record. Imagine what was going on off record. The Disciples began to fall into disorganization, and groups of disciples began not to honor the Black Gangster Disciple Nation, and even feud with the other disciple groups. These groups still did not like the gangsters due to the 1968 war with the gangsters that caused civil wars and violence. So you know it was whispers here and there, a couple of guys throwing shade and guys still speaking on what happened in '68. Now blood was shed, lives were taken. It's kind of hard to look past that, especially losing close friends and even brothers. Now 1970 came and went. In the beginning of 1971, King David would get arrested for defacing firearms and discharging a weapon, and he'll get 6 months in county jail. Now Jeff Ford will be in and out of court for different situations. So the rest of '71 was the norm, shootings, snipings, all that stuff still happening. Now smaller gangs in the projects were caught in the crossfire in the war between the Disciples and the Egyptian Cobras. So eventually they would pick a side. Some became the Cobras, some became Disciples, some would even become Vice Lords. Now in 1972, the attempted murder charge against Jeff Ford will be dropped, but more charges will be put on Jeff Ford for mismanaging the government funding they received in the 1960s. Eugene Hairston and Jeff Ford both were struggling to bring about order over the Stones behind bars, but each of them had their own agendas, and this made them rivals in many ways. Jeff even made Mickey Caldwell the acting leader to keep Eugene Hairston out of power if he gets out on parole. Now Jeff will be sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now February 26, 1973, William Pookie Young, a 19-year-old neighborhood drug dealer, was kidnapped and shot to death in an alley near 68th Street and Union Avenue in Chicago's Inglewood area. Now 5 days earlier, Young was accused of stealing drugs and money. It's been alleged that Larry Hoover ordered the hit. Black Disciple member Andrew Howard will get the job done. Both men will be arrested on March 16, 1973. November of 1973, both men will be charged with the murder of William Young, and both men would be sentenced to 150 to 200 years in prison. The law wanted to make an example out of them. They were tired of the gang nonsense in Chicago. Now, in that same year, David Barstow would start to slow down. Now, he was tough, and there are times when there's people in pain, but they just ignore it. They just try to tough it out. And you know, during those times, the guys were getting shot left and right and recovering it, but it's like, dude, you were shot with a rifle. And after being shot, your body is not the same depending on how bad it is. But you know, some guys continue to drink heavy and smoke, and I'm not saying that's what he did, but eventually he would need a kidney, and his brother would help him out with that. Everyone knew King David was a giver. He gave back to the community every chance he had. He would grab a stack of $1 bills and go outside of school and hand the kids money until he's all out. Now, his kidneys were slowly shutting down. As of September 2nd, 1974, he would pass away from kidney failure, causing a painful and uncomfortable death. A big loss for the disciples, a true leader. He wasn't perfect, but he's done more for the community than just passing out turkeys. Now, with both leaders not being on the streets were changing for the worse. Guys were taking advantage of position, and if guys didn't have an honorable position, they would take advantage of seniority, extort the younger guys. Guys would throw around Hoover and Barksdale's name. We had guys that were claiming king that wasn't even elected by the honorable chairman. So you're going to hear different answers depending on who you ask. It was a lot of misleading going on. Guys didn't know who was who or what was what. The original commandments weren't being followed. Meetings weren't being held anymore. To tell you the truth, if your name comes up and one of the old timers don't stamp it or vouch for you, you're probably nothing to the organization. Now, this put Hoover in charge of the Gangster disciples, and he continued to run it from behind bars, still calling shots. But like I said, the Black Gangster Disciple Nation just wasn't the same without the leaders being on the street. And of course, Larry Hoover is still behind bars to this very day. I just wanted to cover the glory days of the Black Gangster Disciple Nation. I appreciate all the support. Shout out to all my subscribers, and if you like the new content, hit that like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. I'm coming at you every week, so turn the notifications on. Don't miss out. Stay safe. I'm out.